We are so thrilled to have you here today, and I'm Christina Wilson. I'm one of the counselors at the high school. Welcome to the first guidance discussion group. This environment doesn't seem much like a discussion can happen, and perhaps in the next month or two, we might try to find an environment where we can kind of really sit and discuss things and not have a lecture, because this is a lecture hall. And it's hard to not lecture here, but I think it's always great to have, kind of us sitting around and just thinking about some questions together in ways that we can put our head together and think about things a little bit differently. And I think that's the great part of a group, and that's the great part of a discussion group. So we'll be here today in this hot, sticky room, but hopefully we'll find another venue. But I have with me Miss Kira Hunt this morning, who is the 9th grade counselor, so she only has 9th grade students, and Mr. Greg Carollo, who has 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. They are going to be giving you a little bit of an update on just some initiatives, both in 9th grade and also with our seniors, which I know, show of hands if you have a senior. Okay, show of hands if you have a 9th grader. Okay, I see people raising their hand for both, good. 10th graders, okay, good, and 11. All right, so we have a great mix. So we will touch on, some things that will be important for all of you, and I welcome you. We also have Miss Erin Brown is in our department. She also has 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, and Mr. Gary McCarthy, who also has 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. I have seniors. Okay, so that's kind of where we are at. So I just thought, just to start this morning, kind of a sense of what we do here, and you can see we have a bunch of different initiatives going on throughout the year, and we'll talk about those, but just some things to keep in mind, that when we have a problem, we want to reach a solution. I think that's really a goal for this group, is how can we all come at this a little bit differently and be helpful to each other. I think it's a great way for us to kind of interact and create deeper understandings of certain things, okay? I think it's an opportunity to hear each other's opinions, okay? And to be respectful in hearing those opinions, okay? It should stimulate our thinking, to get to see something from a different angle that we don't normally think of. That's the great part of a discussion group, and I hope that that's a goal for us here in this group, okay? And it's an opportunity for us to actively relate to each other, okay? We relate to each other normally, but actively relate to each other. What does that look like? How can we be supportive? I have a feeling that some of you who have seniors can really be helpful to a parent of a 9th grader, okay? And you have that perspective. And I hope that you would feel comfortable sharing your perspective when it's appropriate, okay? And really being there to guide and help somebody who's going through something that you have a great perspective on, okay? Some considerations for this group, I think it's always respect, okay? A respectful dialogue and respecting others' opinions. So I just bring that to your attention, that is always on our mind when we're in a group discussion. And then the last thing I would just say is I think the benefit of this group is when the discussion is a more general discussion, okay, about issues or concerns that might affect a larger group of people. Individual issues, something that's very specific to your child, there's an opportunity for that. And that's certainly with me directly or with your counselor, with your child's counselor. But to ask questions and talk about things in a more general sense, I think is really the goal for this discussion group. Okay? So I just wanted to say that. I'm not going to do that every time, but for the first one for the year, for those of you that are new, just to kind of get a sense of where we're coming from and just kind of set some ground rules there. Okay? Any questions? Okay, now to what you're here for, the interesting stuff. Ms. Hunt is going to give you a little bit of a presentation about 9th grade transition to the high school, just what you can expect, and I'll let you ask her questions, and then she can go back to work. Not that this isn't work.
Hi, so how many of you, for the freshmen, is this your first child in the high school, just so I can get a good sense? Okay, so quite a bit of you. So I hope everyone's kids' first weeks went well. And, I have to say, this year, there wasn't a lot of students lost the first 2 days. Usually they all come into guidance and say, what drop day is it? I don't know where to go. But it seems like they're transitioning really well. I think that it's a big jump going from the middle school to the high school. They're used to being in teams with all the same teachers and all the same students in the class, walking the hallway with all the same students, and now it's 4 grades here and it's all different teachers. So it's a big transition for them. This year they will be with me, and at the end of the year in the spring we will transition them to meet the other 3 counselors that will work with grades 10 through 11. One of the great things I think about freshmen is the mentor classes. How many of you they've come home and talked about the mentor classes already? Yeah. So I think it's a great resource for them. It gets them comfortable with the class, their peers, and also with the school. They do scavenger hunts, they do tours. They also do, I'm sure the upperclassmen parents, Yogi Ball. That's a big thing they do here. And if you, over there's a yellow sheet. If that didn't come home yesterday or they lost it, it's a permission slip for a t-shirt form. So you might want to grab an extra one on the way out. So that is for the Yogi Ball tournament, which is usually a lot of fun. And it gets, right now they're probably just with a lot of their the mentor class in general, but they will do activities with the whole grade. And the Yogi tournament is a lot of fun for them. So take one of those on the way out. Another great thing, this Friday actually there's a club fair. So what will happen is in the cafeteria, all the different clubs will set up. It's almost like a book fair, but they walk around and it's all different clubs. So that is a great opportunity for them to see the different clubs. They will have a poster up of a description of it, and the upperclassmen will be there to kind of talk to them about what it's like and what to expect from it. We definitely recommend to put their name down on the sheet. Even if they're on the fence about it or don't know if they can commit to it yet, it's better off to put their name on it. That way they can be added to the Google Classroom for it. Most clubs will have Google Classrooms. And then they can see, when it's meeting, go to the first meeting. If they don't like it or they don't seem interested in it, that's okay. We'll find something else for them. But as long as they put their name down on it, it's better off to get involved. I will also be going into the mentor classes starting next week. So we used to do kind of they'd all come in here and we'd introduce themselves, but this year, trying to get to know them a little bit better right off the bat by going into the mentor classes. So I will be starting next week and going for the next 2 weeks. I think the mentor teachers say they get annoyed with all the different guests coming in. Mr. Walsh goes in, all the assistant principals go in, but now they're getting me. So I think the mentor class is really a great resource for them. I think that transitioning from middle school to high school, a lot of kids in middle school may have seen a counselor and some just may have not. They may have not needed them. But in high school, I think it's different. It's a different transition. And I think that throughout the next 4 years, they're definitely going to want to get to know their counselor. I would say for me, if I had to pick the top 3 reasons that kids come to see me in 9th grade, would be 1, a social issue or a friend issue or something that they want to get involved in. They're not sure when a club meets, they're not sure when their teacher stays after, and first they might be a little intimidated to ask. Another thing I see a lot of is anxiety about tests here. They think it counts, they all hear this year counts, you have to do well, and certainly in the beginning. I think once they kind of get used to the transition, what each teacher expects, what each class test is like, exam, I think their anxiety seems to settle down a bit, but in the beginning you might hear them stress at home. We try to bring it down. A lot of them start to think, if I fail this one test or quiz, it's going to, ruin my whole year. And we explain to them that what's the worst thing that could happen? You fail and then you work with the teacher on what you have to improve on. So those would be the 3 things. And of course it changes at the time of the year that when I see them. So, in the winter and the spring, that's when already we'll be talking about sophomore year for freshmen, as well as all the other classes we'll be talking about next year. And that's a time that a lot of the students will come in to ask me, what's this class like? What do you think of this elective? I'm in Earth Science this year. What science will I be going into next year? And a lot of the teachers and chairs will come into the classes to do that, to explain it. Like, they'll come in to explain the Global Scholars Program, the Science Research Program, just to have the freshmen get a good understanding of what the programs are like. Another thing that I think changes a lot in middle school to high school is when they see me. A lot of the students who saw the counselor in the middle school a lot, they find it difficult. I have to be in class all the time. When can I see you? I always tell them, if it's something urgent, emotional, mental, anything urgent, come right away. I reach out to the teachers. I can put their attendance in, tell them that they're with me. I can give them a pass back to their class. But if it's something urgent, they have to come right away. And I'll be there. Hope they all know where my office is by now, hopefully. And the other thing is, if it's a question that they have but they don't want to miss class, just reach out to me. I'm here in the morning, before school, after school, lunch. Whenever they are available, I will make myself available. The other thing is, this year we have a 9th grade Google Classroom. All the 9th graders got 2 emails for it. So ask your kids if they're on the Google Classroom. If not, just reach out to me and I will send you the code to make sure they're on it. We will be posting on the Google Classroom just informative stuff about what's going on in 9th grade, and also chairs will be posting when there's different stuff going on for the different departments. Let's see. Google Classroom here, a lot of teachers will use it, some more than others, but you want to make sure your kids are on their class Google Classroom. And some parents, the kids can invite you to it if you want to see what's going on in the class. Another thing that's very helpful, the planner agenda book. Some students might have their own planner at home that they use, but there is a Byram Hills one that's very helpful, and that would be, it's $10 and it goes through Mr. Eagle. So if they're not sure, they can come see me. They can ask their mentor or their mentor teacher how they go about getting a planner or an agenda. If this is your first child going through high school, if your student is struggling with a specific subject in a class, first thing, have your student talk to the teacher. Have your student, try to plan a time to meet with the teacher, whether it be after school, before school, during their lunch. And then the second thing is the parent, 9th grade, we're trying to have them have independence and learn how to advocate for themselves, but find that in between and wanting the best for your child. So the parent can always reach out to the teacher and, see what's going on, what they think is missing, or what they should be working on at home. And other resources, peer tutoring. So that is a great resource for freshmen. It is free, and the upperclassmen will apply for it. And it comes from recommendations from the teachers. So it's a student who's upperclassman who, is basically an expert in the material, whether it be in algebra, living environment, earth science. And Mr. Allen, Matt Allen, is the one that you want to reach out to arrange that. And you can always email me and I can connect you with him. But peer tutoring is a great resource for the students. Just a few more things. A conflict with a teacher or misunderstanding, I think sometimes happens. There's different perceptions of different situations. The first things first is that we always recommend you can always reach out to us and we can walk you through about what are the next steps. Like Ms. Wilson said, we always want to come up with a solution. But you can always reach out to the teacher and understand what's going on. And then you can always reach out to the chair. But we want to walk you through what we think would be the best appropriate next steps. And then just a few last questions that I usually hear from freshmen or freshman parents. My student is classified, declassified, or has a 504. How do the teachers know? So I think in middle school it was a very team approach. They all sat down, went over the IEP, 504. Here, each teacher gets a roster. And the roster, there's a dot next to the student if they have a IEP, a 504, or if they're declassified. And the teacher can automatically click on the dot and it takes them right to the document. They can review the entire document. So all the teachers, first week of school, before school started, they had their rosters and they were going through all the documents. If there's any questions or about the modifications, accommodations, or the classes. If they have a resource room, you definitely want to reach out to the resource room teacher, or you can always reach out to us. We can always help you, or if we're not sure, direct you to the right person. Regents exams. So for freshman students, if they're in algebra, they'd have an algebra Regents exam this year. And if they're in earth science, they'd have an earth science Regents exam this year. Next year is when they would take the global. So the good thing about the global now is it's 10th grade only global. It used to be 9th grade and 10th grade. So that's the good thing moving forward for them next year. It's just 10th grade global for the Regents exam. And the last question I do get sometimes is team meetings. So I know in the middle school they did a lot of team meetings. You met with all the teachers if you needed to. Here's a little bit different. So the teachers are very flexible, with their schedule, with speaking to you, but we don't have access to their calendar. So if you reach out to us, we can't schedule a meeting for you with them, but you can definitely reach out to the teacher and they will be more than happy to meet with you, speak with you on the phone. And of course, if you need us there or you want us to come in on the conversation, we are more than happy to. The other last thing, I am working with the grade activities board this year for 9th grade students. They volunteered a mentor last week, so we had a meeting on Monday, but if you talk to your student and they are still interested in it, have them come see me. So the grade activities board works with all the different activities for homecoming, pep rally, prom for the upperclassmen, the pre-prom last year, which was wonderful. So it's kind of the behind the scenes work. So that's a great opportunity to get involved in a different avenue that I'll get to know some of the students. So if they're interested in that, please have them come see me. It's not too late. And then on September 23rd, it's on the document, but September 23rd at 7 o'clock, that's when we'll have just the freshman night, and we'll go into some things a little bit more in depth. And up here, I have a green sheet, which was handed out during orientation. It's tips to success for the 9th grade students. But if it didn't come home or you want an extra one, please take one there. And then the yellow sheet is the Yogi Ball t-shirt tournament. So if you didn't see that one yesterday, you might want to grab one before you leave. Well, if you think of anything, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. If I think of something that I forgot to, I will definitely email you guys. But please make sure the kids are on the Google Classroom, and you can always get invited to that. That way you can see stuff. I'll post stuff that's going on, and the department chairs will. All right.
What if they're playing sport now and the club meetings, like what happens with that?
Yeah, so it's hard when there's multiple things going on, but the best thing would be some of the sports don't start. It depends what sport, it depends when it starts.
But like now, let's say it's going on now.
Yeah, so some of the practices, some don't start till 3 o'clock, 3:15. So even if the club meetings start at 2:25, 2:30, it's helpful if they can even go for 15 minutes. Now, if they have a game or something and they really can't make it, I would just reach out to the advisor or the senior and just say, I can't make it. Can I catch up with you maybe tomorrow during school sometime?
Are the clubs as much of a commitment as the sports, or is it?
No, it depends what you're interested in, but the coaches will want you at the sport.
Right.
So, even if you go to a meeting and you tell your coach it's practice, I'm going to be 5 minutes late, you got to talk to your coach about what he expects. But it's hard to manage all of them, but you can definitely try to find different ways to, reach out to the club advisor and just say, I can't be there today, I have a game. And they're not going to kick you out of the club. They want kids involved. They want you there. So,
Cool. Thank you.
yes.
Are all clubs open to all grades?
That's a good question. Some of them, I believe that most of them are.
I think they are. I mean, obviously, grade activities board, if you're 11th grader, you're in 11th grade activities board, but I can't think of something that is...
Peer tutoring wouldn't be because they have to apply, but most of the clubs, yes.
Something like debate or mock trial,
Yes,
something like
yep.
that.
Right,
Yep.
they're open for all grades, and then, just come over here for the purposes of the camera. They're open for all grades, and you might not have a leadership position, first year, and you work your way up, but I think they're all open. I really can't think, can you think, Mr. Curlow?
I think they're all open, yes.
They're all open, right.
And some clubs and activities will be a little bit more of a commitment. Like I know debate is a big commitment. And I think that some students, eventually may have to decide which one, because it's a lot of weekends, a lot of after school nights. But some of the clubs that aren't such a commitment, like I know GAB, we don't meet that often. We do a lot of communication through the classroom, and I will email them when we meet, but it's probably like once a month. But I know Debate does, like, for example, meet a little bit more often. Okay, so the question was, is it possible to get a list of the clubs? So it's on, if you look at the website under the handbook, the community handbook, there's an entire list of clubs and activities and who the advisor is. That would be the best way. So if you go to the website and you go to the handbook, the community handbook, and you can just search, extracurricular activities, clubs, and that will come up. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And I highly recommend coming if you're a 9th grade parent on September 23rd. We will go into greater depth just about coursework, what to expect over a 4-year period at Byram Hills as far as guidance is concerned, and really kind of give you kind of like the long range view of guidance, bless you, until at that time. Okay, now we're going to move on to some very interesting stuff, college, and giving you an idea of just where we're at as far as college admissions, our college application process, and what you can expect as far as college-related information. And Mr. Carollo is on board to give you that information.
Okay, welcome everybody. So part of being a school counselor in 2019 is we're looking for new and improved ways to deliver college counseling services. So it's typical in Westchester County in New York State, in September, counselors meet in large groups with senior students. And that's what we used to do at Byram Hills. We would have a counselor in front of about 50 seniors. We would use Bobcat Hall, we'd use the lecture hall, and it was a one-day event where we would help the students with Naviance, how to send transcripts, how to request teacher recs through Naviance, that sort of nuts and bolts college application piece. So we wanted to do something this year that was different. We were looking to do something that was more student-centered, a little bit more intimate, and a little bit more flexible for the students. So we designed something called Application Clinic. And there's some information listed. So, are up here on the screen. So instead of 50 seniors in a room with one counselor talking at them, we now have these clinics. We have 27 different clinics. We have flexible times for students to come. But it's the counselor now working with a small group. Instead of 50 students, 5 or 10 students. They come into the clinic, they pick up their Chromebook, and right then and there in the application clinic, they're going to match their Common App with their Naviance. They're going to learn how to use Naviance to request transcripts and how to formally request teachers. So I think there's 2 really good benefits to Application Clinic, and the first is stress reduction. So yesterday, we had our first Application Clinic. 4 seniors walked into room 100 right across the hall. They walked in with a little bit of trepidation. What is this all about? They had a lot of anxiety about the college process. 20 minutes later, they walked out and with a smile on their face. Oh, this is great. This is easy. Now I know how to do this. Now I know how to do that. It's not difficult stuff. It's just nuts and bolts. But from a stress reduction standpoint, it was certainly a benefit to students. And an additional benefit has to do with how we as counselors serve our seniors in our offices. I want to be as present as I can with a senior student. So rather than me in my office going over, again, this Naviance and this nuts and bolts, the senior student walks into my office with that already completed. So now we as counselors can ask those important questions. What does the best school counselor support look like? Tell me your biggest anxiety about college. What classes are worrying you? We can be more present with them because all those nuts and bolts have already been taken care of. Okay, so we have a little bit of information here. It's over 8 weeks, and we've given the students a number of options. They only have to attend 1 clinic. That's all they need. They only have to attend 1 clinic. So just for some perspective, in the month of September, we have 11 or 12 application clinics. This is the month of September. You can see that we have clinics over lunch. We have clinics in the morning before school and after school as well. And we'll be offering 16 or so in the month of October. So we're really excited about Application Clinic. We think it's going to really be a more student-centered approach to college counseling. Another thing we're excited about, and Ms. Wilson mentioned, is the college visits. We have over 90 colleges that have, or around 90 colleges that have already signed up. That number will eventually reach 100 colleges. The seniors sign up easily on Naviance. The information is right there for them at their fingertips to sign up electronically. And the colleges love coming to Byram Hills. They love talking to our students. Our students are so impressive, and they're very engaged during those small group discussions. A little bit of perspective. I figured if I was going to talk about college, let me also make mention of some data from last year. So we had 213 Byram Hills graduates last year. About 2/3 of them enrolled in a private college or university, and about 1/3 enrolled in a state college or university. I think the third bullet is something that is noteworthy. 58% of our students enrolled, they matriculated into a Tier 1 college as defined by Barron's. That's the highest number that we've ever had, at least in the 11 years since we've really been tracking that with a lot of precision. And 17% enrolled in a Tier 2 college. That number of 75% in Tier 1 and Tier 2 is, again, the highest number we've ever had. And that's a compliment to our amazing students, our families, and our teachers, and the Byram Hills community for the incredible work and the incredible academic rigor that we have in our school system. And the last piece I'll mention on this slide has to do with the number of students who are using early decision 2, and early action. That is a trend that's rising nationally. If that's something that you know about, great. If it's something you'd like more information about, never hesitate to pick up the phone and speak to a school counselor at Byram Hills. So we're talking about Tier 1 schools, we're talking about competitive college admissions, and I would be remiss if I did not mention our wonderful initiative that we have with Stanford University School of Ed. This is the 3rd year that Byram Hills is partnering with Stanford with their Challenge Success initiative. We're one of about 150 high schools nationally that are working with the School of Ed. And the theme of Challenge Success is fairly simple. We do not want to do anything in our district to dial down the rigor that we have and the great success that we have. But we are concerned about wellness. We are concerned about wellness, and we want to make sure that we are attending to the social and emotional needs of our students. Everything from sleep to engagement to academic honesty. And we did a wonderful survey a couple years ago. We have a steering committee. We're proud of some of the work that we've done on our SPACE framework. I think you've heard about Challenge Success over the last couple of years. If you haven't, it is a nice topic to consider and the work that we're doing. And I recommend reading the white paper of Fit Over Rankings. That speaks to the importance of finding a college that is the best fit for your son and daughter. That's critical. We want your son and daughter to go to college happy, healthy, and whole. That's an important goal. Okay. So thanks for your attention, and let's open it up for some questions, and we'll take it from there. Naviance is a private portal where the students communicating with us.
Okay.
It's not. That information does not go out with the application.
Okay.
What's on the Common App is the piece that goes out to the colleges. Good question.
Does everybody know what Naviance is?
No.
I realize we throw that name around like as if you know what that is. So Naviance is, it's a portal. It's information that we collect about colleges and our students over since 2001, actually. So we collect data about our students, the GPA, the SAT, the ACT scores that they've needed to apply to the schools, and we also use it as an opportunity for teachers to send letters of recommendation on behalf of a student to the colleges and universities. It's also the manner in which we submit the transcript to a college or university on behalf of a student, and also our counselor letters of recommendation. That's like the tip of the iceberg for what Naviance can do. There's so much in Naviance. For example, this year, your 9th grade child will do a program called Do What You Are, and it's basically like a Myers-Briggs inventory where you get information about your child as a learner, potential careers that would be aligned with who they are right now and their strengths, blind spots as learners, areas that they might have difficulty, and that's just one of a bunch of different inventories that a student can take in Naviance. It happens to also be where we house a resume. So we work with students in 10th grade and we have them start to develop a resume and we ask them to build on that over the course of the next 3 years. And just as the question in the back discussed, it's from that resume that a student then can complete the Common Application activities section. They can put 10 activities on their Common Application, and if they've been keeping it updated in Naviance or somewhere else all along, filling out that activity section is quite easy. So that's what Naviance is, and we give students access to that at the end of 9th grade when they do the interest inventory. Not all the information that is in Naviance gets communicated through to Common Application. It talks to each other, it's connected, but it's connected for the purposes of a teacher being able to go on, see a student has applied to a particular college or university, and send letters of recommendation. It's also how we can send a transcript, but nothing else. So it's not like the resume that a student has in there is available, to be sent to colleges. So it's limited with what is connected. Does that make sense?
Transcripts and recommendations?
Transcripts and recommendations.
Not test scores. Test
Not
scores
test
have
scores.
to either self-report or request from ACT or College Board.
Correct. So the question is, test scores need to be sent either from College Board if it's an SAT, or ACT through ACT. Those are separate. Those, just so you know, those are your property, your child's property. Okay, you've paid money for your child to take those tests. Those are independent of Byram Hills High School. We know them and we can see them just for the purpose of helping to guide students, but it is their property in which they need to send to a college or university, and we help facilitate that. So at Byram Hills, we think it's best to give that information to a student, and if the student would like to share it with you, then they will, and most students will. But it is a student's independent password and username, and we do give that to them in 9th grade.
So I'll go on Naviance and I can see, I might be talking to a junior, and I'll say, wow, you've been on Naviance 14 times. And the student says, I forgot, I think I've been on once or twice. That's usually a cue that mom and dad have logged on. So most of our kids do share that information. Yeah, so the teacher gets an email from Naviance saying that John Doe has asked that you write a letter of recommendation for them. John Doe is applying to these schools. So when the teacher goes through Naviance and hits the send button, that letter for that particular applicant is going to go to that same list of schools. On the student side, the student might send one letter to Binghamton because Binghamton wants one letter. They may send 2 letters to a bunch of schools, and for a particular school, they may even send a 3rd letter. So Naviance gives you the ability to be that precise to designate specific teachers for specific colleges.
We have Dr. App, went to Vassar, okay? She loves it when a student asks her to write a letter for Vassar specifically. So she'll write a general one for all the other colleges, and it will be specific for Vassar. She will explain that she's an alum, and all that kind of stuff. So that absolutely is a very different letter. Okay. So the question is about the coalition, and our feeling about the coalition is if you don't need to use it, don't use it. There, I said it. Okay, but in most cases you don't have the choice. You have to use the coalition, right? So doesn't really matter, but there's a program called Parchment. Parchment is connected with Naviance, and that is what connects the coalition application to Naviance. So the answer to that is there's nothing different that you need to do. If your child is applying using the coalition application, we know how to read that, we know how to send the information, and it's nothing that you need to be worried about on your end. Actually, the answer to that is if your child only applied to coalition schools, we would make sure that they created a Common Application account. So even though they're never going to submit an application through Common App, we need them to have a Common App account. If they have a Common App account, we can link with Naviance, which links us to Coalition. That's the answer to that. So the Coalition application it's like Common App.
What is Common App?
Okay, good. Well, I don't. So Common App, unlike when probably all of us went to college where we actually filled out a paper copy of an application, this is an online application that member institutions, member colleges and universities subscribe to in an effort to be able to fill out one application and apply to a lot of schools.
Several hundred, I can't
Several
remember
hundred,
what
let's
it's up
just-
to now.
A lot of schools. So you do one application, and if the college is listed on the common application, they accept that common application. You don't have to do their own specific application. Very similar with the Coalition application. The majority of the schools on the Coalition application are larger universities in the South. And a lot of high schools in the South, what they do is they have students create a Coalition account as a 9th grade student, and it's kind of like a record of all of their courses and their grades by quarter, and they develop it over the course of a 4-year period and then send it off to the colleges and universities. And it's had some it's newer, so it's had some interface issues with Naviance, and that was why I said if you don't have to use it, we would prefer that you not use it, but in most cases, if they offer Coalition, they're not offering the common application as well. Georgetown's a holdout. They don't want to let go, so we take care of that, and we see that we can see on our end a college or university that is not on the Coalition or Common App, and we take care of actually printing out and sending through the mail and or emailing all of a student's information to that school.
The student doesn't have to apply to the school?
They
And
do.
they're in their application?
They do.
Oh, okay.
I'm just talking about our end. So a student would go online to Georgetown, create an application, an account, and apply that way. But I'm just saying for the purposes of a teacher recommendation and a transcript, we would take care of sending that.
It's so soft.
What needs to be?
I'm trying to think of a good metaphor. I can't think of one standing on my feet here, but we know kids, the question is about ED deadlines and informing us. So we know that kids are going to change their mind, or there's going to be a change in that process. I had students last year knock on my door in the middle of February to say, I didn't think I was going to go ED, but I want to go ED to this particular college. Can we still meet the November 1st deadline? Absolutely, never a problem. That's just more of a courtesy, but we will be as flexible as we can, and we'll make sure that any November 1st deadline, we can get it out in time.
So the question is, do students know how to tell us that they're going to be applying early decision, early action? And we're putting a lot of stuff right now up on Google Classroom. So it's on there, it's on Application Clinic, and we're talking to students individually. And I would just go back and say about that deadline, that EDEA deadline is really just saying, hey, I think I'm going to be applying somewhere early. I might not know where that place is, and we don't need to have them know that at this point. We just want to know from our standpoint in getting things ready and prepared for a student that this is a student who's going to be sending out at least some sort of an early application, and we need to make sure we have everything ready. With 80-something% of our seniors applying early, that's pretty much everyone,
Right.
but it also invites an opportunity for us to set up a meeting with a student and to discuss that decision. Where are you going to apply early? Is this the right choice for you? Let's think about this. And that's really what this deadline is. It's an opportunity to invite that conversation. The short answer to that is really there's no benefit. If in that specific situation, there's really no benefit, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the reps who are going to be reading that application are on the road. They're not at their desk in the months of September, October, and part of November. And I understand that most things are online these days, but they are not sitting down and reading applications while they're on the road.
And they
are
don't
on the
timestamp
road.
it as if to when it came in. To
It's-
show like more interest because you sent it in earlier, right?
Every time we ask that question to a rep, the answer is very formulaic and very standard. We're not going to start reading till November 1. There's no benefit to the timeline of your application. That's the company line that they put out, and it's universal.
I will say the only exception to that is a rolling school. So
Right,
rolling
right.
is the deadline, there isn't a hard and fast deadline. Typically, from the time that a student's application is completed at a college, they will typically give a decision within 2 to 3 weeks. It is always a good idea to put out rolling decision applications as soon as possible. Once the class starts to get filled up, so students start to deposit at a particular school, it becomes harder and harder to get into that school. So we always like students to apply early for rolling. So the question is about SAT and ACT and when is a good time. That is a very individual discussion. And that is something that if you have any questions about that, I would reach out now to your child's counselor and they can discuss it. It depends a lot on the coursework that they're in. We want them to obviously be prepared before they sit and take a test and not feel like, oh my gosh, I have so much to learn. So it depends on that. It also depends on your child. For some students, it's better for them to just get a test out of the way early on and allay some of their fears and concerns. And for other students, we would never want them to sit and take a test before they were really truly prepared and ready. So I would say have an individual discussion with your child's counselor about when the best time for your child to take that test.
So NCAA eligibility is definitely, firstly, is typically not an issue because our requirements are well beyond state of New York and well beyond NCAA. Recruiting for a sport is very sport specific. So oftentimes the first place to start is with the coach to learn what the regular practices are to get recruited, because spring sports are different from fall sports and every sport sort of has its own culture. And if the counselor can be included in that conversation, it's certainly beneficial to the student. Right, so the question is about PSAT and SAT and diagnostic testing. So on testing day, I think it's the Wednesday after Columbus Day, all the juniors are going to take the PSAT. I think we're seeing a few more juniors every year sort of opt out of that. They sort of know they want to go direction of the ACT. The ACT is gaining market share in New York State, actually nationwide. So it oftentimes is a decision of the student with test am I more comfortable with. A lot of the private companies, we don't endorse any, but a lot of the private companies offer free diagnostics where you go to the company, they give you the diagnostic, and then they give you feedback. Based upon your son or daughter's results, we think he or she should concentrate on the ACT versus the SAT.
That sort of, how does that work?
Never a problem. We've never heard any feedback from any rep that they prefer one test versus the other. And there's almost like 1,000 now test optional colleges too. Just want to put that out there just for information sharing.
That's actually a very good point.
Yeah.
Most of our students will use the PSAT as kind of as a starting point. Take that. Did you like it? What did you like about it? And if they did well and they're comfortable with it, they'll stay with it. Sometimes at that point they'll say, let me try the ACT as another option. They'll try the ACT, but we like to use PSAT as our diagnostic to kind of say, here's a starting point. Let's discuss from here. That was a great question. I did get that question. So the question is, should the students be dressed up for the college visits that are here at the high school? And that's just normally whatever they would wear to school on that day. We did have colleges, or we do have them time to time on Halloween, which is always interesting with a rep. So we have scaled back from doing that on Halloween, but just as long as they look appropriate. It's a little awkward when they're wearing a Stanford sweatshirt and they're in front of Duke. So just think about that. But otherwise, they're not. That's not the time where you have to dress up. If you're going on the college campus, that's the time that I would be a little bit more put together. So there is an opportunity for students if they can't miss class, and that is a real possibility that they can't miss class. There's always a way for us to get the rep's information and to follow up and to say exactly that, and I've never seen that be to a student's detriment in any way. So I would just suggest when you look at 5 and 6 on this list, if there's anything else that you would like to discuss, both in the future, if there's a topic that you think would be useful. I'm just conscious of this not becoming a completely college-focused discussion, because there are a lot of issues that we are all dealing with, and I want to make sure that we give all of that the attention that it requires and deserves. But if there is a particular focus that you would like to take in the future, please let me know. I'm happy to put it on there. And likewise, if you'd like a guest speaker of some sort, somebody that I can bring in to kind of shed light on something, that absolutely is great information. Thank you.
Thank you.